Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of How I Built It. This is the in between seasons episode. I'm trying something new here, where I kind of recap the previous season and then introduce the new season. So we just wrapped up season 4 a couple of weeks ago. Season 4 was my favorite season for a lot of reasons. I talked to a lot of really great people. I had some fantastic sponsors. We did that story arc. Or the multi-episode arc on how to build your own business, which I thought was a lot of fun, a little bit of experimenting there. And there were a lot of takeaways. I think I said this a bunch of times when I was introducing the episodes. I got a lot of immediately actionable advice from my guests. So hopefully you did too. I thought that was probably my favorite part of season 4, on top of all the fantastic people I got to talk to. There were multiple times where I sat there and I said, well, this is something that I'm going to do right now. I'm going to take this advice. I'm going to start applying it to my business. So I just want to recap a few of those, right? So the first was from a relatively recent guest, Thomas Umstattd Jr. He talked about kickstarting plugins, right? Or crowdfunding his business's endeavors. And when I asked him about Feature Set, he talked about a client that he had named Barbara, and that Barbara was an older lady, not really familiar with computers, but managed her own website as an author. And, he said that they would always try to invoke Barbara's name when they were talking about UX or a feature. They would say, this plugin is for Barbara. What would Barbara do? How would she react to this? And I really liked that because it keeps that development team grounded in, well, this is not a plugin for me. This is a plugin that I'm building for other people, and I need to consider how other people might use that plugin. All too often I see people building software that they don't use, that they don't have any idea about how people use. It's shockingly apparent in the LMSs that I've used at various higher education institutions. It's just clear that some big corporation decided to get into the LMS game and made some features and didn't consider the user experience. So it's very refreshing to see that. To see a development team talking about that. So I really, really liked that. Patrick Rowland, going kind of to the opposite end of this season, talked about, we talked about how to build a WooCommerce store, essentially. And he said that we as humans are almost always driven by emotion, whether we realize it or not. So the thing that ultimately makes us want something or makes us purchase something is the emotional aspect of it. So we can justify all we want. We could say we need this, but ultimately it's the thing that we're going to feel emotionally connected to that makes us buy it. And that advice, again, I started using that immediately. Right after our interview, I reworded some copy on my sponsor page, on my online courses site, on my personal site, to hopefully dig deep into the emotional aspect and emotionally connect with the folks reading the copy on the page. I think it's working out. I need to do some A/B testing still. But I mean, I'm definitely doing better at this point this year than I was at this point last year. So that's something to think about. On the same token, several guests talked about following your passion, right? Another thing that's very emotionally driven, right? So Peter Hollins, Brad Williams, and Sarah Dunn all talked about doing things to follow your passion. Peter talked about it in the context of, he has this online academy that's really fantastic. He's very passionate about teaching people their passions, and he says that if you're passionate enough and you're driven enough, you can make money online doing what you love. But you need to have that passion, because if you don't have that passion, as soon as it gets hard, you're not going to want to do it anymore. And Brad talks kind of in the same vein, right? About following your passion and doing what you're passionate about. Sarah Dunn talked about it in kind of a different aspect, where she was looking to niche down her business, or start a new business where she was niching down, and she was having a lot of trouble finding something that you want to niche down to or niche down to. I'm going to decide right now to just keep saying niche because that's how I've always said it. So niche down to. And she finally found it because she was helping somebody with their wedding website and their SEO for their wedding service. And she not only was able to help the person, but loved helping the person. So, she found that passion for her niche. So that is, there was a lot of talk about a lot of passionate people on this season. And again, that was maybe another reason I really liked it, is because, I love talking to people who are very passionate about the things they do. I'm very passionate about the things that I do. I probably have a lot of strong opinions because of how passionate I am at times, but I think that it's really important. It needs to be an important driver, especially as I approach my first full year. Next week is my going solo anniversary, and it was a hard year, but it was a very rewarding year, and I wouldn't have been able to do that without having that passion. And my wife saw how passionate I was, and was very supportive because of that. So, have passion in what you do. Let your emotions drive you in that sense. Um, the last two or three takeaways, I guess, have to do with something that I'm not great at, which is good copywriting. I think I'm a very good writer, but I think that I let my own biases cloud my marketing copy, right? I guess that's maybe, I'm not great at writing marketing copy. I'm good at writing, but marketing copy is a whole other animal that I have a hard time wrapping my head around. So when I talked to Nicole Kohler and Jen, she has a new last name now, Jen Roventine, nay Jamar. I hope I'm saying that right, Jen Roventine. When I talked to them, I kind of talked to them back to back, and Nicole talked about the necessity to communicate clearly with your copy, right? People are most likely going to read some headlines and try to get a good idea of exactly what your product does. So it's important to use that copy to communicate clearly. Becca Rice kind of talks about the same things. And the way that you are able to communicate clearly is thanks to Jen's advice, which is to know your users' problems or know your target audience's problems. So, all three of them, Jen and Nicole and Becca, talked about actually talking to your users or potential users. See what problems they're trying to solve and write your copy that way. Decide your features that way, calling back to what Thomas said earlier, or what I said Thomas said earlier. Understanding your customers or your potential customers' problems allows you to write clearer copy to say, hey, you have this problem, and here's how we can solve it. And that goes back to helping with the emotional aspect of your copy. So you might find a common thread through all the things I'm talking about here, right? Know your users, appeal to the emotional side of them, and communicate clearly. If you can know your users enough to communicate clearly, then you can write that copy that appeals to the problems they're having, and you can say, hey, I know how you feel. I want to alleviate your problems. Here's how we can do it. And that's that emotional grab. So really loved that. And then, once you have the once you have them hooked and they buy your product, the last piece of advice, which I really love from Nancy Hildebrandt, which was to have task-based documentation, right? So if you are understanding your users' problems, then you should be able to write good enough documentation to walk them step by step through how your product solves that problem. So I'll link all of those episodes in the notes for this episode. But that was just kind of a 10-minute-ish recap that I wanted to give of season 4. So that is season 4. I have a lot of really great guests lined up for season 5, including I'm not getting away from WordPress. That's not how I would want to word that, but I'm definitely branching out and not just talking to WordPress people. I experimented a little bit with that in season 4 when I talked to Brad Dowdy about making physical products, and I want to do it a little bit more. So I get to talk to a bunch of people like Seth Scott, who developed a video game for the Nintendo Switch. I talked to the folks over at Ulysses, which is my favorite writing app for the Apple ecosystem. And I talked to a bunch of folks that are talking about SaaS. I talked to PJ Tai about Uscreen. Just a lot of, I think I have a really good, diverse set of guests, not only as far as different viewpoints and things like that, but as far as what they're building. So I think we're going to get a really good, let's say a smorgasbord of how different tools are built. Really, really excited for that. I have most of the interviews done already, and they're out for edit. So I'm very excited to see the reception that those get. But and we're going to be kicking off this season with Rachel Cherry, who is organizing WP Campus. So organizing an event is maybe not becoming more common, but we're seeing it a lot more in the WordPress space. I organized WordCamp Scranton, and I did event organization in college with the University of Scranton programming board, where programming means planning in this context and not my normal type of programming. And I always thought that was really fun, if not stressful. And so if you're not getting mentored on that by someone, or you don't have somebody to help you out, it could be hard. So I really appreciate the advice that Rachel will give us in episode 1 of season 5. And aside from that, I have lots of really, really cool stuff. So very excited about that. I also want to thank you, the listeners. The show grew from about 17 or 18,000 monthly downloads at the beginning of the season to almost 28,000 monthly downloads in May, the last month of the season. So crazy growth, like 30%, a little more than 30% growth, which is amazing. So I'm going to try to continue to grow and deliver that high quality content that people are apparently looking for. The last few things I want to talk about in this little in-between episode are some of the ways that I'm trying to build more of a community around how I built it. So I have like kind of a dormant Facebook group, and I want to make that Facebook group better. So I'm going to really double down on that this season. So if you want to join the Facebook group, it is free of charge. You can go to howibuilt.it/Facebook and sign up. I'm going to use that as a venue to ask questions and post news about previous guests, and of course promote the new episodes. But I want to start discussions about building things in that Facebook group. I've also started an Instagram account. So if you go to howibuilt.it/Instagram, that'll take you to my Instagram account. The username is also howibuiltit, all one word. And I'm going to be posting not only pictures of the new episodes and of the sponsors and stuff like that, but I'm going to use the story to show kind of behind the scenes stuff. So I'll maybe live stream some of the stuff I'm doing, or take pictures with guests and things like that. If you if you go over to the Instagram account now, you'll see maybe a portion of this where I'm talking into the microphone, and also kind of just adding this to the story, if I can figure out maybe how Instagram works, right? So, uh, I have like a live story going on right now where I am recording this recap video, and so you can see, what I look like, I guess, when I record, but also how I use my equipment and stuff like that. So, that is that's what I have planned for the Instagram feed. Um, I just want to show kind of more of the process and more of the behind the scenes stuff. A lot of people ask me about podcasting, and I feel like Instagram is probably a good place to showcase some of that stuff, maybe off the record. So that's the Instagram feed. If you go to howibuilt.it/Instagram, it'll redirect you to the Instagram account. It'll also you can also find it over on How I Built It. If you go or How I Built, I'm sorry. If you go to instagram.com/howibuilt, you can sign up for the Instagram there. And last but not least, I'm making a concerted effort to make my Patreon account better. So, the Patreon account will give you more access to me. You'll get an access to a Discord server. You can ask me questions about upcoming guests. You can give me questions for upcoming guests. So I'll try to post my recording schedule for the next couple of weeks. And when I do interview people, I will ask questions that maybe you have proposed. And maybe those will be exclusively Patreon questions. And then I also want to try to host a weekly Q&A, right, where you post questions in the Q&A forum. I'll start that weekly, and I'll answer any questions that you have about podcasting or course creation or general development or whatever. So you can find that over at howibuilt.it/Patreon or patreon.com/howibuiltit. Very palindrome, like not palindrome, but it's very reverse URL sort of thing. So let's see. To recap, we talked about some of my favorite things from season 4. The common thread being understanding your users enough to appeal to their emotion. I talk about season 5, where we're not only going to get WordPress stuff, but we're going to get software as a service stuff. We're going to get other platform development stuff and a lot more. I'm trying to make Facebook work. So if you go to howibuilt.it/Facebook, you can sign up there. I have a new Instagram account, How I Built. No it, just How I Built. And I'm really trying to make Patreon a good place. So if you're looking for free community stuff where you can interact with other listeners and possibly guests, check out Facebook. If you want more direct access to me as far as exclusive content and early content and ad-free content goes, then you can head over to Patreon. Or if you just want to support what I'm doing, you can do it for as little as $1 a month. So if you don't want the extra content, that's fine. If you just want to support what I'm doing, that is fine too. Speaking of support, I want to thank one more time my season 4 full season sponsors, Liquid Web and Jilt. I was able to introduce transcripts this season thanks to them. So they are helping make my podcast a more accessible place, which is very nice. If you're in the market for high quality managed WordPress hosting, check out Liquid Web over at buildpodcast.net/liquid. And if you want to recover some of those abandoned carts from either your shop or your client's shop, head over to buildpodcast.net/Jilt to learn how Jilt can help you out. Thanks so much for listening. I really appreciate it. Season 5 drops in a couple of weeks with Rachel Cherry talking about WP Campus. So until next time, get out there and build something.